Hello everyone, my name is Min and I am your dead DM, and I wanted to talk about the history of lazy animation. If you've been on my channel long enough, you may remember the Art of Critique video I did while I was back in Romania. It did really well for one of my videos, and I'm very grateful for that. But a few of my friends were very surprised that I didn't talk about more lazy animation techniques. You know, throughout the history, aside from just the quality of Colonel He's a Liar. So I figured I would dive into deeper depths about the history of lazy animation. We're going to go over a chronological history of lazy animation, mentioning the Bray Studio, and cutting off at about the 60s. You know, everything from smart people that don't want to work as hard to just very strange choices. Now, animation is very hard, so when I say lazy, I am specifically talking about things that change the industry workflow to preserve time, whether it has a lasting impact on the industry or a very short-lived one, and talking a little bit about the impact on modern animation. So, we're gonna rewind back to the Bray Studio, and we are going to stop synchrovoxing right now, because I find it very unnerving, and I'm sure it's making everyone else uncomfortable. So let's go. Okay, so I talked about the Bray Studio in both my Art of Critique video and the motion media video for animation memes. So instead of saying all that information again, I'm gonna be a bit lazy and just allow a clip from the Art of Animation, from the Art of Critique to play here, because I can't think of a new creative way to phrase what they did right now.
J.R. Bray and Bray Studio. This guy revolutionized the animation industry to a point the industry could exist in the first place. They made a shift from an individual artist to a team or assembly line process. They also developed cell animation, transparent cells containing the moving assets that could be overlaid on a static background. This opened tons of time shortcuts, which allowed the possibility of higher quality products.
Good job, past me. Look at me benefiting off the pre-made assets like a lazy person. In the context of the Art of Critique video, I am comparing the historical progression to modern storytime animators. It's not up for debate that the Bray Studio set down the foundation of the animation industry as we know it today. And at such a crucial time in the history, the medium was still very young. So what happened after Bray Studio? The next set of people I want to focus on are Max and Dave Fleischer. They were two brothers in the mid-1910s who formed a partnership to produce animation. Think about them like a precursor to Disney's innovation in technological experimentation, except they never really established a consistent style or aesthetic. So what did they innovate? Well, in 1917, the brothers began making short films with this new technique called rotoscoping. They patented it, and you can see, I should be playing right now, the 100 Years of Rotoscoping celebration on the screen for you to see what that looks like. Rotoscoping, as you should be able to see in the video, is the process of tracing from live action footage to create animation that has the same energy. It was used as a time-saving thing to get movement more accurate as well. And the very first test of this method included Dave, one of the brothers, dancing in a clown costume. And I wish I had the clip of that, because that clip exists. So they placed footage on a projector and then they traced it. The modern definition of rotoscoping now is a lot broader and uses live action and animated films. It's a transfer of an image from live action film onto another film sequence using a rotoscope. So that includes everything from tracing over live action footage, but also using plane-neural tracking to put other live action footage on top of live action footage. Like, for instance, if you have a stunt double and you rotoscope the face of the actual actor onto that stunt double. It's very interesting. And a natural evolution of this has been motion capture. Maui in Moana, his dancing is done by motion capture. They put all the little doohickeys on him, and he did the actual dance, and it transferred over to the animation. It's very cool, and it's interesting to think that that concept is kind of spawned from this earlier innovation. Have you ever heard of the company UPA? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Maybe you don't know who they are, but you're familiar with their work. You see, the birth of UPA comes from a Disney film called The Reluctant Dragon. This film was basically dedicated to sucking Disney's own dick, literally. But we're specifically going to look at the Baby Weems section of the film. A note, this footage will be slightly sped up, and sections of it will be cut, including a short section with a few racist depictions of people from around the world. I mention this now in case you seek the film out yourself, as well as not to erase the problematic elements of an otherwise fine film. When you dig for these old films, you are going to find racist depictions of people. If you want to learn more about animation, you have to be emotionally prepped for that. However, I'm not going to make you look at it right now, so here we go.
Who's that guy, Al?
Yeah. Hey, just a minute.
Hey,
Don't go away, mister.
I was just holding the nurse for the door, or rather...
You haven't heard the story, have you?
No, not a word, honest.
Just the guy.
Swell, it'll only take a minute. Come on, fellas, get him a chair.
Yeah,
Everybody
take
take
this
his
over
coat,
here.
will you?
Get the
book
book
over here.
You see, what we need is a fresh mind.
Yeah, fresh mind. All right, what are you planning to do with me?
Oh, nothing. We just want to show you something. Yeah, a new story.
Story? You mean to tell me that's all just one movie?
Sure, that's it. Of course, you'll have to imagine the whole thing in action.
Well, I'm a pretty tough audience. Would you like to hear it?
Go ahead and tell it.
Okay. You see, it starts up here.
And it ends way down here.
Yeah. Now we're calling it Baby Weems. First, we open up on the title here, see? And under that, we have the opening theme music. Okay, Frank. Here's Papa Weems, pacing back and forth, nervous as a cat. Cigarette butts all over the floor. It's his first baby, see? The suspense is awful. Then all of a sudden, we see a door open. A nurse sticks her head out and says, "Mr. Weems? It's a boy, Mr. Weems." A boy. Then the poor guy slumps to the floor in a heap. Then we dissolve over to the hospital nursery. It's chock full of brand new babies, all yelling and squalling at once. Wah! Wah! Then we come down closer. To show a nurse at the foot of Baby Weems' crib. He's a cute little guy. The only kid in the room who isn't yelling his head off.
You're a quiet little fellow, aren't you?
Well, there really isn't much to talk about.
He talked!
Why? Is it against the rules?
Oh, Doctor.
Dr. Livingston. Calling Dr. Crump. Dr. Hayes. Dr. Jekyll. Dr. Shapiro. Dr. Cronkite.
Oh, dear.
I'm awfully sorry, gentlemen, but it's quite necessary for our lung development, you know.
Astounding. Unbelievable. Amazing.
Yes, amazing was the word.
So, Baby Weems is sort of a fake film. Within the universe of The Reluctant Dragon, it is an extremely polished animatic created for the sole purpose of giving an idea of the storyboarding process, and was never intended to be a final animation. However, it is much more polished than any real preliminary, oh my god, animatic that would ever be created at that time, even for a studio like Disney. The crew that worked on it really enjoyed how it turned out, and I don't blame them. It's an extremely appealing film, despite not conventionally fitting a Disney film standard. And a lot of people on Disney's team wanted to do more experimental animation, but Disney wouldn't hear it. So after several attempts by ex-Disney animators, the Industrial Film and Poster Service, formed in 1943, became United Productions of America in 1945. UPA, as it is abridged, was a sanctuary for animators who were tired of being boxed in and confined. At the end of the day, these people were all artists, and without the ability to explore, they get very bored. Now, while we move forward about the laziness, keep in mind, I do not believe any of these feats were done out of laziness. However, going from the first Fox and Crow to the style of the second Fox and Crow. Without historical context, you may believe that there is a lowering of quality between these two films. So let's take a look. Across UPA's films, they developed more stylized environments and character designs that were easier to animate and had more graphical appeal, offering the audience a variety they hadn't experienced before. UPA adapted literature into shorts using the style from the original book illustrations. Madeline is my personal favorite example of this because I grew up with the short. It's simple, but really engaging. Divergent styles grew from films like Family Circus. It suggests an artistry and aesthetic in children's drawings. This part of the story is used to explain how a child feels about their father favoring a younger sibling. It's a very well done emotional part of the film, but it's kids' drawings. It's something that we wouldn't think about now. We would think it's a stylistic choice, but at the time was unheard of and unseen. And then you have films like the Oompas, which created characters out of inanimate objects. And it's very simply styled. Very simply styled. Because of UPA, limited animation and crudely drawn animation came back into popularity. They were the subject of mockery and intentional parody in mainstream cartoons. For example, one I cannot show you because I couldn't find a copy I could download, is Popeye the Sailor Man's, quote, "Cartoons ain't human," which I can provide a link to in the description, but again, I cannot show. And what's funny is, while mainstream studios were mocking these things, they were also partaking in the same experimentation that they were mocking and feeding it. They were making it more accessible to the public. Normally their stuff was either appealing for the mainstream or the art house, but very rarely both. Another very good example of this was UPA's Telltale Heart. This is a great example of this. It's not fully animated by any means, but does it remind you of something? Perhaps modern horror films or even games? This film was a critical success. However, it was also one of the first animated horror films, and audiences were very used to their films being humorous. Steve Busteau said, "I recall the audience were habituated to laughing at animated cartoons. Thus, they found the Telltale Heart rather funny. To alter this reaction, UPA prepared a set of opening title cards. These explain the source material and suggest what follows is perfectly serious." You gotta wonder, you're in a theater full of people and it's the Telltale Heart, it's the story of a madman murdering this other man because his eye is weird and he can feel his heart pounding. It's if you're familiar with the story, it's a very intense story. So just imagine audiences hysterically laughing at that. It's insane to think about now, but it's rather funny, not being able to process what they're seeing is serious. That's about all I can really talk about UPA without getting fully off topic. It's easy to see their influence if you have the context of the history. So as much as I would love to keep talking about them, we gotta jump into TV animation and hit this home run, get this done. So what about TV animation? It's the big one, right? The ending of this segment, if you know where it's going. Isn't it weird to think that Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, and other shorts that we associated with TV, especially if you grew up in my age group and had Boomerang, were all once in theaters? It is for me to think about. Sometimes I still get tripped up by it. Maybe it's not for you, but for me it's weird to think that shorts that I grew up with on television were once enjoyed by people in theaters because the theater viewing system was so different. You see, some studios were very reluctant to release their archives to television, but other studios thought it would make a large sum of money to sell their backlog of films to third-party studios to be run and rerun on television. They thought, running them on television would give a big boost to profits. And it did, to the companies that bought the rights. Not the studios themselves, not the original studios that animated things. You see, those studios had to continue to make films to gain any profit, because they sold their backlogs. And once you sell your film, you have no rights to that film anymore, especially in that time. So, I find reruns to be the best lazy technique, and I think more TV companies should do it now. There are so many shows that should just run on television that they don't have to pay any animators for. I think it was a really good idea, and they should do it again. Oh, goodness. And, that's one of my favorite. And now we're going to end with this. For those of you that have been waiting, I'm going to explain where synchro boxing comes from. Have you ever heard of clutch cargo? Well, you're about to.
I've heard of the McTavish Castle for years. It's supposed to be haunted.
They were going on a ghost hunt? Riot!
You see, in 1959, the series Clutch Cargo hit the stage, as to say, and it was revolutionary.
And there he is on the porch now.
Hoot, man, it's you, Clutch Cargo. I was never so glad to see anyone in my life.
You sound pretty happy, Scotty.
What did you think? I was gonna, make the gag at the start and never bring it up? They literally made this show with very reusable stills, and for all the lip sync, it's just the actors' mouths talking. And it's amazing. Oh, goodness. A good modern example of this are shows like Annoying Orange, which I'm sure a lot of people may have thought that I was leading up to, but I wanted to stop in the 60s and not modern days. There's not really much to say about it. It's uncanny, it's uncomfortable, and like all good stories, you end where you start. So we're stopping here with synchro boxing. It's so great. Now, this video was to illustrate that sometimes what we consider to be lazy may be important to the improvement of the animation industry in the years to come. Or it's like synchro boxing, and aside from traumatizing your friends and acquaintances, there is no use for it. The day I am recording this, I have already traumatized a couple of people with it, and it's great. So, now obviously, lazy animation tactics did not end at the start of the 60s. However, for me to continue, I would not be able to put more time into this script, or I would never finish this video. So maybe, if there is a popular demand, I will do a video on how Saturday morning cartoons nearly ruined the animation industry. That would be really fun, wouldn't it? Saturday morning cartoons, the holiest of days, nearly killed the industry. So, that might be really fun to do, ruin a few people's childhoods, that'd be great. So, if you want that, let me know. Thank you everyone for the support. I know my following is very small, but you guys mean the world to me, so thank you. And as always, my name is Min, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I truly hope you have a wonderful day.